So 14 years ago, our first daughter was stillborn, and it obviously crushed us. But 4 years later, we found out we were pregnant again with another baby girl. Halfway through the pregnancy, we found out that something was wrong with her heart, and we later found out that she had single ventricle, basically meaning that she was missing the right side of her heart. We were told that she would die at birth unless the surgeons did their work immediately, and that with several open heart surgeries, they could probably save her life. So she was born in Baton Rouge, and about 15 seconds later, the surgeons had all the lines inserted in her and had her alive. They then told us that we had 8 days to get her to Boston for her first open heart surgery. The problem was our insurance company wanted to do it in New Orleans, and the doctors told us that if we did it in New Orleans, there was a 20% higher chance that she would die. So we began our first appeal with the insurance company, and we lost. We appealed a second time and lost. And Friday evening, I got a call from the surgeons in Boston, and they said, if you're coming to Boston, you need to get on a plane in the morning because tomorrow a blizzard's going to hit and you won't be able to come after that. About 10 minutes later, I got a phone call from the insurance company saying that we lost our third appeal and that we had to do it in New Orleans or they weren't going to pay anything. So I went and prayed, and Jesus told me, get to Boston and I'll take care of everything. He told me not to worry at all and that everything would be taken care of. So my next question was, how do we get Jolie to Boston? We couldn't just take a commercial flight because she was on all kinds of stuff keeping her alive. So the doctor said that we had to get a medically equipped Learjet air ambulance to fly us out to Boston. I found one out of Canada that could be there the next morning, but they needed us to wire them $20,000, which I didn't have. Fortunately or unfortunately, we had just been through Katrina, and my dad lost his house and had just had $20,000 sent to him by his insurance company. So an hour later, I had that $20,000 wired to Canada, and the next morning they showed up with the air ambulance. Me, Diana, and Jolie flew on that air ambulance, and we had our boys put on a commercial flight with both of our parents. An hour after we landed in Boston, the blizzard of 2006 hit, and within 2 hours there was a foot of snow on the ground, but Jolie was safe and sound in the hospital.
I remember when I found out that Jolie had half of a heart. I was 5 months pregnant, and it was very emotional because we had already lost our first daughter, Annalise, and so I just remember crying out to God and asking him, like, what are you doing? Why is this going on? And he spoke to me. He said, to show you my glory. And I didn't understand that. And then of course I knew God could heal her and she could have a perfect heart. So I just began to ask God, what do you want me to believe? And the Lord spoke to me and he said, believe that I am the healer and that I am going to heal her. Through the whole pregnancy, everything was smooth just because I had that word from God and I held on to him. And I said, he's going to heal her. He's going to heal her. The next day, she was getting ready for her surgery, and I asked the people, I asked them if they could do another ultrasound of her heart before they cut her open. They came back and her heart was just the same, and so I knew God hadn't healed her the way I wanted it to be, and so I just knew the healing must have been that he was going to just heal her through the surgeries.
Time in Boston was not easy, even though Jesus was there carrying us through it with his peace. We went through the same storm everyone else went through, but we had him with us, and that is what carried us through it. We became really good friends with 3 other couples while we were there, 2 of whom lost their children. So the reality was there the entire time. But God was there by our side. And so Jolie came through the first surgery wonderfully. And The doctors told us that although everything looked great, that they couldn't feed her yet because they suspected necrotizing enterocolitis, where the intestines may not have gotten enough blood flow, and if they fed her, she could die. So they said, we're not going to feed her for a week, and we're just going to keep an eye on things. A week later, they said, she still looks great, but we're just going to go another week to be safe. They did this for 3 weeks, and on the 31st day, they let us out of the hospital and sent us home. So we got home and found $1 million of medical bills waiting for us, and it didn't make sense since Jesus has told me he was going to take care of it, but we just continued to trust him the best we could. And about a month later, I just felt led to start reading the 300 pages of Medicaid regulations, where I found a little clause that said if you're in the hospital for more than 30 days, Medicaid will pay for everything. And they kept Jolie for 31 days, so we didn't have a single penny to pay for that first surgery. 8 months later, we went up to Boston for her second surgery, and that went really well. And again, we came home with over $500,000 in medical bills. And this time, God led us to another clause in Medicaid, which said that you can't spend more than 3 months of your income in any given year on medical bills. And so Medicaid paid everything except for that portion, and then the surgeon decided that he didn't want to charge us for that, so again, we didn't have to pay anything. 2 years later, we went up for her third surgery, and everything went great, and we had more bills, and God took care of them again. So fast forward about 2 years ago, Jolie's now 11, so at age 9, we went in for a routine catheterization to change out some stents that they had in there. And after the surgery, we went to talk to the nurse, or actually the nurse came and found us, and she had tears in her eyes. And I said, what is it? She said, well, I've never seen a girl with this problem that has had such a good surgery. Everything inside of her is perfect. And we're like, okay, that's awesome. And she's like, but this is the best part. She said, I'm not even a Christian, but I know that y'all are. And when we went inside, what we found was that all of the arteries and blood vessels from the surgeries form a perfect cross inside of her chest.
We can see his glory, and I can definitely remember the moment when he spoke to me and said he was going to show me his glory through Jolie. You know, as a mother, it's just, you can't imagine pain, like losing a child, and then to think that you might lose your other child. It made such a difference to hold on to Jesus and to ask him, what do you want me to believe in this situation? Instead of starting to freak out as normal people would, you know. I just remember his words comforted me. His words gave me guidance. His words allowed me to not stress over the whole pregnancy. It was just a miracle that God was going to take care of her, and he was telling me she was gonna be healed. I just didn't know how. In the end, I saw and I see every day, I see the healing.
Jolie received a prophecy before she was born that although she only had half of a heart, she was going to live like she had two. And that pretty well defines her.
Yes.
The doctors told us that she was going to have very low energy because she would only have 80% of the oxygen that everyone else does. That because of that, her brain would not develop well, so she'd be slow. That she would not be able to play like most kids. That as she gets older, she wouldn't be able to have children. And just that she would struggle with some potential sicknesses that not everyone else would. As it turns out, she's one of the smartest kids in her class. She's got more energy than anybody I know. And the doctors told us recently that they don't think it'll be any problem for her to have children. They used to tell us we couldn't travel outside of the country because the hospitals weren't good enough to take care of her if something happened. And they've lifted that restriction as well. She goes to the Dominican Republic every year on a mission trip, and the doctors said they have nothing to worry about, or that we have nothing to worry about when she's there because she's doing so well.
heart is really hard, but there's a ton of good things. Like whenever I went to Disney World, I had a free pass to go in front of everybody. So yeah, I skipped a line, so that's awesome. I like having half a heart because I get to tell people my testimony, and some people become Christians. I love kids, so I love toddlers. So I'm gonna be a teacher in like kindergarten and pre-K and stuff. And whenever I'm a teenager, I'm gonna work at Sonic so I could skate and give food to people. But yeah.